It's my pleasure to welcome you to yet another edition of the NSMQ Review Show. My name is Emmanuel Jivenu and we are coming to you from the Primetime Studios here in Accra. This is the third episode, and in the previous two episodes, we look at performance of schools in 7 regions. Today, our focus is going to be on Western Region, Ashanti, and Greater Accra regions. In the previous one, we looked at the performance of the schools and how well we think they are going to perform at the national, which starts in about 27 days from now. And I hope you would make a date with us as we go to the competition, which would be aired on various channels, including our various social media platforms, and on YouTube and Facebook. We are at NSMQ Ghana, same on Twitter and Instagram. I have in studio 3 individuals who will be helping me peruse the performance of these schools and how well we think they would perform when it comes to the national competition. And close to me is Samuel Nete Ajo, and he is one of the coordinators. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And in the middle is Mr. Fifi Hope, and he is one of the regional quiz master. Sir, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And to my far left is Stephen Yankee, one of the coordinators for the regional competition. Gentlemen, once again, I welcome you all.
Thank you.
So in the previous ones, we were looking at the performance of the schools at the regional competition, and same we will do for the remaining 3 regions. Can we start with Western Region? And I'll start with you, Mr. Ajo, since this falls within your jurisdiction. Generally, how has the performance been?
Well, it wasn't a bad performance, though you would have expected better. But then we had some of the schools who you would naturally think that they should be able to make it to the national championship. But then unfortunately, they were beaten by the lesser known schools. A school like Ottoman bin Affan, SHS, beat a veteran like Insign, SHS. On paper, as soon as you see the pairing, you'd definitely take Insign as a school that would qualify. But they were beaten in that these schools are also coming up strongly to compete against the so-called veterans of big schools. Some other contests where you had 2 equally good schools in their elements, St. John's School and Secondary College. SECO, I mean, has been with the program for some time in terms of qualifying for the national championship. They've been quite consistent, unlike St. John's. But this year we had a surprise in that respect. St. John's were able to beat Secondary College and then therefore qualify. Other schools like Nkofra who have been quite consistent, unfortunately, even though they qualified, but the marks weren't that encouraging as you would expect them to. You expect it to be. There was a particular contest where there were 2. The one that featured Fija SHS and Bonzukaku SHS, Mpo SHS and Honey Valley SHS. It was quite a scare that Bonzukaku gave to Fija. In fact, I think they led right from the from the first run till we got to the last run, and it was at the 4th run that was the last riddle that Fija were able to get that riddle, and for which they won that contest.
And he in fact won by 1 point margin.
No, 3 points.
3 points margin.
3 points margin, yes. So it was the last riddle that they were able to. Otherwise, we would have had the riddle shock in the Western Regional competition. Then also Shama, of course, they made it to the national championship before. They really gave Takrady SHS a very close fight. Yeah. It was quite close. The difference was 3 points, and so it showed what the kind of stuff they put up. The other contest we had was quite predictable in the sense that schools who made it last year were able to qualify once again, and so generally it was quite okay, but we think they could have done better.
Yeah. Fee, I mean, you were the quiz master for Western Region. What was your reading to the competition that went on in the Western Region?
It was a good one. It was competitive for most of the contests that we had. Unfortunately, when you look at Western Region and you pick out 1 or 2 schools, the others fall within a particular bracket that does not push too hard when it comes to science and maths quiz. So they normally would come and then quickly go home to prepare for the following year. The trend seemed to be repeated once again. So you'd see GSTS, you see Fijai, and then you see Bishop Porters all the others sometimes just come to make up the numbers. You could see the scores were quite low. Somebody
Absolutely.
recording -2. We may have to call the buzzer to pay something to prime time. Yeah.
But you realize that what you said, I side with it, except that Archbishop Porter girls have been very consistent. They've seeded their school for some time now. GSTS last year wasn't the year they lost and had to go through the regionals, but they came strongly at the regionals. How did they fare?
They did well. They did well. They dispatched their opponents with a gap of, I think, about 35. Asankregua, Methodist, St. Augustine's, SHS, and Asankregua. And they couldn't offer much. They couldn't offer much. That's what I'm saying, that if you pick out just one or two contests that you had the first school being monitored closely by the second school, almost all the others had a free walk in terms of how they were answering the questions and the competitions that they were having.
Stephen, there again at GSTS, you realize that, I mean, if you are known to be one of the creme de la creme schools and you come across this so-called lesser known schools, you would want to beat them all hands down. You wouldn't want to underestimate them. Was that your reading into this particular competition?
Well, I think GSTS went into this contest as wounded lions. You see, in 2018 they exited at the 1-8 stage, and certainly if they were going back to regionals, they would need to announce their presence that this year they are in for business. So I think even for them, 45 points was even low. I mean, they could have gone beyond 45 points, but certainly not bad at all. But if you look at the point difference, the second place could score 10 points, which meant that it was either GSTS was scoring all their questions or they were picking bonuses here and there. And that was very good for them. I think it will boost the team's morale for the competition. I just hope that when they come to the prelims, they can replicate the same performance over there, because that is where it matters. Getting out of prelims, going beyond that to 1-8, and then getting seeded, that is very important, especially for a school of that caliber as GSTS. But I think for me, one contest that surprised me was contest 9 in Western Region.
Fiasiman winning that particular competition.
Fiasiman against Isiama. Isiama has been quite consistent for some time. So, and in fact, last year they were at the nationals. So I was quite surprised how they lost, and I mean about an 8-point margin to Fiasiman Senior High School, and I think it only goes to show that schools are preparing really well. Absolutely. So if Fiasiman can also showcase the same performance, maybe we might be in for some Western schools going beyond 1-8 stage this year.
Absolutely. Phil, let me come back to you again. I see contest 7 in which St. Mary's Boys SHS won by 33 points. Unfortunately, one of their rivals, the DSO, had -2, meaning that they even owe you. How did that happen?
No, when you miss a bonus question you have attempted, you would have to lose a point. When you press for a speed round question and you fail to answer correctly, you would have to lose a point. So what it means is that they missed more than they could answer rightly. That is why they have that -2 over there, which also goes to tell you that the others could have even done better. If they were not picking their own questions, then the others should have capitalized on that. But St. Mary's could manage only 33, and even with the stronger competition, St. John's could manage 46. It tells you that St. Mary's boys were not really pulling their weight. I hope they prepare well before they come to Accra.
In contest 8, Samuel, in contest 8, I see these schools are not that too well known to the competition. They are more or less like first timers to the competition. And we realize one of the schools made it through. Mr. Samuel, or Samuel, I should say, you witnessed this particular competition. How did it go for you, especially they winning by 33 and in fact one of the highest in the region?
So like I was saying, as soon as we conduct the balloting for this particular contest, on paper we all ticked and signed to win the contest. Othman bin Affan, they were on last year, but they couldn't get anywhere, and the other schools as well have been part of the regional process, but not been able to make it to the national championship. So by and large, we all felt that, look, this is the sign who are going to qualify. I mean, it's simple. But then, Ottoman bin Affan gave us the real shock by conducting their own affairs and therefore exercising their authority over Ensign. It was, initially was a give and take until it got to, I think, the third round where the difference started appearing, and for which by the time we got to the fourth round, Ottoman bin Affan has been able to establish their authority over Ensign.
So in total, we have 10 schools making it through the regionals to appear at the national level in June. In addition will be Archbishop Porter Girls, as you can see on your screen. So in total, 11 schools representing Western Region will be making it to the national competition. I would also want us to go to Ashanti Region, one of the powerhouse when it comes to the national science and math quiz. Stephen, let me come to you. Your assessment of the region's performance.
Well, I think, as you rightly said, Ashanti region is one of the powerhouses. Ashanti and Central regions have been dominating in this competition, not just in recent years, but for as long as the program has been in existence. And if you look at the regional competition, it was really good. It was very keen. Some of the contests were very exciting. Even for those who followed our updates on our social media pages, I mean, they could also feel the excitement, even though it was not live over there. Some of the contests, I think, were very exciting. We had some of the lesser-known schools coming in to unseat some of the well-known schools in the competition, which was also good. Another plus to show that the competition is not just the preserve of certain schools, but once you prepare well, you can continue to make it in the competition. I think there were a couple of contests that stood out for me. I mean, talking about the lesser-known schools, the one with in Sutaman and Yasantua girls.
Absolutely. Everybody would have wished or would have want Yasantua to go through easily.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen to be so.
Exactly. Same as the Twase contest where they beat St. Hubert. I think that was a good one too. And then if you look at Kumasi High, how they beat their opponents 77 points.
The highest, I think, for the regionals.
Yes, that was really impressive. And if you look at the history of Kumasi High over the last couple of years, they've been at the semi-finals over the last 5 or so editions, or 4 editions, absolutely, I think. And they lost out last year, and so coming in this year, certainly they are. In fact,
it was a painful loss.
Yes, yes. So they really had to announce their presence this year to send a signal to whoever they are going to meet at the regional, at the prelims. So I think that's why they won by such a huge margin this time. So generally, I think the competition in Ashanti region was very good.
Fee, let me come back to you again. What do you think, or what do you make of the competition that went in the Ashanti region?
It was a keenly contested one. We had a number of schools going beyond a certain mark, and I think that it tells you that the region was really pushing hard. There were a few surprises for St. Hubert, and I think Twasi also. Yeah. We all expected Hubert to go through. For 2 or 3 years running, a few people have been able to put Hubert up there, but it looks like something is missing at this particular point. And with a mark as low as 34, they were edged out. Yes. So it tells you that even their opponents who won didn't really push in much, yet they were able to go through. I would also want to talk about Kumasi Academy, who also did very well. In fact, Kumasi Academy and Kumasi High were the schools that recorded very, very high marks. Kumasi Academy had 70 points. The schools they met were not schools that we would say were well known for such exploits. Absolutely. Yet they were able to pick their own points and then add some of the bonuses from those schools, hence their mark of 70. If somebody goes beyond 50 and then the second person is below 40, it tells you that they were really working hard.
And then they were even answering questions of their opponents in addition to this.
Precisely. And then the speed round also was dominated by that particular school. But even in the Kumasi High contest, Kumasi High virtually picked or pressed for almost all the questions, even though they missed 2. Yet they could not be matched by the other schools. It was an exciting occasion to really witness.
Samuel, do you also think same? Was it
yes.
person looking at this vis-a-vis the previous regions we've
Yes,
looked
yes. Just like Stephen and Fifi just mentioned, I completely agree with it. And there's this school that I've been quite impressed about them. That's Tepa.
at.
It's a school that we don't consider them as how should I put it? A very strong school, just because for me the name is the name that strikes me.
Okay.
And then they had a contestant, forgotten the name. Abrefi. She was very impressive at the regionals last year. And so I really took note of their school. So when she left, I mean, I never considered them to be able to make it out of the regions. But then, come the competition, they were able to beat Adventist SHS Bantam and St. Joseph and St. Dumasi SHTS, and with quite a good score, that's 54 points. So for me, it was quite impressive. And just like Mr. Hope said, Kumasi High, judging from their performance, well, you could say the schools they met weren't that strong. But then, if the confidence at which they took the contests, I mean, it's what they're going to replicate at the national championship. I mean, irrespective of whichever school they're going to be, that I think that is a school we need to look out for.
Absolutely.
So is Kumasi Academy. So we all wait to see what they will put up at the national championship.
You need to know that this is a region that has also produced one of the highest seeded schools from last year's competition.
Yeah.
So this year, how many are we looking at moving from the regionals to the national?
We have 6 schools who are already seeded, and therefore we needed now 20 schools who we're going to join the 6 to make the 26 schools. That is the quota for the Ashanti region. So in total we have about 26 schools. So the 20 schools qualified from the regional competition, and they will join the 6 for the national championship to represent Ashanti region.
And bear in mind that they will be competing from the preliminary stage through to 1/8, and if possible, if they make it through the 1/8, then they would have their school seeded for 2020 National Science and Maths Quiz. Finally, I would want us to touch on Greater Accra region. They usually host the National Science and Maths Quiz, and for some time now, it's been a bit difficult for the so-called creme de la creme schools, the big schools we've known. Talk about Presec, talk about Achimota, I think St. Thomas Aquinas has quite been impressive for the past 4 years. But let me come to you, Stephen. What is your assessment of the region, or in respect of the performance of the schools that competed in the regional competition?
I think the performance was very good for the various regions that my team organized or produced the regional competition. Greater Accra seemed to have produced some of the best winning scores, although the scores were not as high as in other regions. If you look at how keen the contests were, you can see that the schools really gave off their best. For instance, Chemu Senior High School was very impressive. They started the first day of our regional competition with a really high score, 43 points.
Came very prepared.
Yes. And I remember we told them that they should continue to follow in that same manner, so that the second school should not drop below 43. And interestingly, the second school to qualify with 44 points. So we felt that, okay, that was going to continue. But it was in the third contest that Fafraha Community Senior High School, for the first time...
That is a shocker.
Yes, they qualified. That was their first time participating in our regionals. That was their first time. And they came up against Accra High School. Accra High School has been in the competition for God knows how long. But Fafraha Community Senior High School was able to defeat them. Then came Laboni, really impressive side. They qualified it also with 42 points. And then Ganata Senior High School, Dodoa, also came in, did very well. And Achimota, again, contest 6. They qualified with 43 points. And their contest featured English Yaman from Wesley Grammar and Nungwa. So, the competition was just, I think, to be fair, it was between Achimota, English Yaman from, and Wesley Grammar, although Achimota had an upper hand from the very beginning of that contest. The last but one contest had Adan Senior High School qualifying almost every year. They also seem to qualify for the competition. Interestingly, Accra Girls was in that contest, and Accra Girls hasn't qualified in quite a while. For some time now, they haven't been able to qualify. In the last contest, we had Ashaiman Senior High School qualifying also.
Ashaiman has somehow also been consistent.
Yeah, the last time they were at the Nationals was in 2017. So last year they didn't make it. And this year they qualified at the expense of Kimbu Senior High Technical School. Kimbu failed to qualify and Ashaiman took their slot. So generally the competition was very good in Greater Accra.
For me, my contest was the one involving Fafraha Community Day School. I mean, this is the first time they are competing, and these are the schools we refer to them as the Rising Giant Slayers. And for them to come on the stage for the very first time, give Accra High no dog's chance and beat them, should send some strong signals to many, isn't it, Samuel?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is something to go that go to a long way to say that you should not underrate any school. I mean, the trend has been established. I mean, for the past 3 or so years, that we have so-called lesser-known schools or minnows come down to establish the authority over these big schools. I mean, on paper, people Accra High, I'm sure, would say that, look, this is a gunner for us. I mean, who is Fafra or where is Fafra High? You know, that sort of thing. We had this experience in I think the year 2000, when we conducted the balloting for that year's competition, and Senegesians were paired. Then we was 2 schools per contest.
Okay.
So Senegesians were paired against Chimu, who were entering the contest for the first time. So as soon as the balloting was announced that they were pairing against Chimu, I mean, you could see the jubilating in the hall. They were, this is a walkover. Well, then they asked, like, which school is Chimu? Where are they coming from? And that sort of thing. Come the day of the contest, Chimu, lashed them squarely. They lashed Senegesians squarely, such that at the end of the contest, the boys could not leave the stage. Because they just could not believe that this is happening to them. So when you underrate a school and think that, oh, where is the school? Because a lot of people have not, I'm sure they've not heard about this school. So, and more, the school I think is barely 3 years old. And for them to come onto the contest and then meet Accra High School, who are more or less like a veteran of the program, and for them to be beaten, goes a long way to say that, look, you should not underrate any school in this present time when it has to do with national science and maths. Otherwise, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot to cry about.
Bear in mind that we'll be having another episode where we'll be looking at where the giants, the so-called giants of the national science and maths schools, fall prey to these lesser-known schools in our subsequent episodes. But Fee, you were the quiz master for this particular competition. In your wildest dream, do you think Fafraha was going to make it through?
Initially, I didn't expect that they would be able to. But when we got to round 2 and I looked at the way they were picking the questions, I realized that they potentially could win the contest. And indeed, they were able to pull through. If you look at the point, I realized that they moved away quite at the latter end. That is to say that Accra High also did their best. Accra High also did their best. But just as people have said, they are supposed to be veterans and they should have been able to do better. But it tells you that Fafraha has also come to do something great. And another contest I would also want to talk about is Ashaiman and Kimbu.
Absolutely.
You know, Kimbu is also a good place to be.
Yeah, but the last time when they came to the national level, they left the competition with 0 points.
They have had their times before. They might not have been at the very top, but you'd expect that within their region and having a slot of about 8, they should be able to command one with some ease. Unfortunately, Ashaiman has been able to push them away with just 4 points. It tells you that it was also a bit of a struggle to the very tail end before somebody could give up. Apart from that, Chemu had a sweet run. St. John's did same. Laboni did same. Achimota also had a very sweet run. Adan also did their best, but I think the competition wasn't that much for them. If you look at the gap between 37 and 21, I think Hotcast left it quite early.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, how many schools are we looking at qualifying from the regions, and how many senior schools do we have?
So 8 schools qualified from the Greater Accra Regional Competition: Chemu, St. John's Grammar, Fafraha Community, Laboni, Ganata, Achimota School, Adan, and Ashaiman Senior High School. So these 8 schools will be joined by the 5 seeded schools, Presec, Legon, St. Thomas Aquinas, Accra Academy, Margaret Mary, and West Africa Senior High School. So Greater Accra would have 13 schools at the national competition when we start in June.
We look forward to seeing them, and we pray they put up an A1 performance at the national level. But one thing I would want us to look at before we wrap up the show is the average performance for the 2019 edition of the National Science and Maths Quiz. Generally, how has the schools performed on regional basis? Stephen, you would want to take it first.
Well, I think looking at the performance of the various regions across the country, maybe we can see that the central region is the best performing region at the regional competition.
But was he expected?
So, as you said earlier, Central and Ashanti regions seem to be the powerhouses when it comes to National Science and Maths Quiz. So, personally, I'm not surprised that Central regions seem to have performed much better than all the other regions. I think after Central came Ashanti, which shows that it's either Central or Ashanti. You know, last 2 years when Central had 7 seeded schools, Ashanti had 7. Last year, Central had 6 seeded schools, Ashanti had 6. So both regions are in a sort of head-to-head or neck-to-neck competition when it comes to the quiz. So I'm not surprised both regions seem to have performed much better.
Eastern region hasn't also done badly at all, Fifi.
Yes, Eastern region is also a powerhouse to an extent. We've had Peters, we have Paul Jones, and another school that has also done well, but we have not discussed them too well, is KST, Skofodia.
Yeah.
They also come in strongly and also able to pull through. Eastern is also doing well, just that they seem to have a number of schools who may not be up to the standard that others could boast of, and so you don't see them pushing too well closer to what the Central and then the Ashanti schools would have. They have the current champions, so we're expecting a lot more from them. It's not going to be easy for them though.
Oh, okay. I also saw that Western region, they are midway when you look at the performance in terms of on the basis of regions. For example, the highest was Central region with 12.5%.
Yeah.
Western region had 9.9%. What's your reading into this?
Well, it's just goes to confirm what Stephen and Fifi just mentioned earlier on. I mean, you have those the schools in the Central Ashanti isn't always establishing themselves at the pinnacle of the program in terms of performance. And Western region, it's not that consistent as you'd want or you'd expect it, because throughout the contest we've only had GSES winning the contest just once. Yeah. You would expect that the other schools would follow up the trend, but then it's not been the case. Ever since GSES won it, they've not been able to establish themselves again until some 4 years ago. They were able to make it to the finals, but then they lost at the final stage. But when you look at it, for me, I've been very impressed with Upper West region, for instance. I mean, looking at Upper West and Northern region, Upper East, and then Brown Afro region and Volta region. I mean, 9.7%. I mean, it's quite incredible in the sense that it goes to say what they're trying to do. I mean, in terms of encouraging the students to be able to exhibit good performances. For that region to be able to overtake those regions. I mean, some years ago they were nowhere near this level, but then up to this point, they've been able to rise up to this level, this achievement. I think that is quite laudable, and for which we need to recognize Upper West region.
So finally, we've looked at all the schools that will be competing. In fact, schools that made it through the regional competition and will be making an appearance at the national level. We've looked at all of them. Finally, I would want to find out from you, what is your expectations going into the national? Fee, you would want to start with us.
I am expecting a lot from schools from Central region, Greater Accra region, and perhaps Ashanti. I'm saying perhaps Ashanti because Central and Greater Accra had the regional championship, and so all others joined in the competition. But when you come to Ashanti, we didn't see schools like Opokuware, Prempeh, UK and UST and those people. So you cannot really tell what they have up their sleeves until we get to the nationals. We will not be able to determine how good or otherwise. But one would expect that with schools like that, they should come good all the time. So I'm expecting that we'd have a lot of good stuff coming from these places. And as we always have, you would have one or two schools also coming from, I wouldn't say unexpected areas, but they may cause an upset.
So do you also expect some upsets here and there?
Well, as I remember, as we discussed in the first episode, I'm expecting 2 schools from Upper East region to progress, to do well this year. Navrongo Senior High School and Bolgatanga Senior High School. I'm expecting them to do well this year. I mean, it's subject to how the balloting goes and the schools they meet. But on a good day, I expect Navrongo Senior High School and Bolgatanga Senior High School to do well. Same as from Upper West region, St. Ignatius of Loyola or Lassier Tuolo Senior High. I really hope that this year they can do well. I mean, apart from these regions, also BA, I'm rooting for Sunyani Senior High School, Notre Dame Senior High School, Techiman, hoping that they can also do well. So I'm sure this year the story might change. Maybe Upper West and BA most likely will have a seeded school.
And the Volta region, what do you think? Which of the schools do you think are going to be making it through at least the 1/8 stage?
I mean, even though I haven't seen Keta SHTS and Mauli School because they are seeded, I'd vouch for them because when you watch the trend in the past years, it's been quite consistent. Yes. Aside those 2 schools, I can't stick my neck out strongly for any of the schools, those who qualify. But one can never tell. Last year, no one in his wildest imagination ever thought Sunrise would come from the Volta region, come and deal with.
And this year they are coming too.
Yes, they are coming, but then they weren't too. I wasn't too pleased with their performance.
Okay.
But it just could so happen that we could have a surprise in the Volta region. For Ashanti, yes, Kumasi High. Considering the schools they met, I say might not be that strong, but I like the confidence, the confidence they were exuding, and for which I believe that could play. I mean, it could play a major role in their performance. That is, if they'll be consistent with that. Kumasi Academy as well. Of course, because based on their scores, I want to believe that because if they attain those high scores, it might boost their confidence level, and for which it will impact on their performance. For Central Region, I mean, it's there. I don't want to talk too much about that.
Okay.
Eastern Region, I'm looking at Oti Boatin as I indicate. Oti Boatin. I mean, they were very, very good. I believe
one
that
of the highest.
Yes, they were the highest. The second highest scores.
74
points. Yes, and I believe that I'm seeing a potential was in Oti Boatin in the sense that last year they had formed 2 to represent the school. And then those boys are still representing the school at the 2019 edition. So I'm expecting this few schools to go to establish themselves, but I will not rule out any surprises.
Absolutely. At this point in time, you would only wish time is a bullet train, so that it moves very fast, so that we have the national competition starting. But bear in mind that we are 27 days away from the launch of the 2019 edition of the National Science and Math Quiz, and do well to join us as we bring you all that you need to know. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the show. It has been exciting, and hope to see you some other time at the 2019 edition of the National Science and Math Quiz. Viewers, this is where we part ways, but bear in mind that we are not done. We will be coming your way next time with episode 4, where we'll be looking at the regional championship. This is a new program put together by the organizers of the National Science and Maths Quiz. And until we come your way again, my name is Emmanuel Jivenu. Thanks for your company.